Denzel Washington once said that some people will never like you because your spirit will irritate their demons. Hi, I'm Melissa Kim Corter. I'm a Jungian depth psychologist and international bestselling author. It took me years to understand that this is a gift, that my warm and grounded presence can put people at ease, to help them feel safe, to unburden their hearts, yet others were instantly repelled by my presence. And as a shadow worker, I'm often exposed to the worst parts of someone's life, including their darkest thoughts and deepest secrets. Many of us are gifted with the ability to hold the darkness of others, but we don't always know how to uncover it within ourselves. I was kind of a strange kid. I was highly intuitive, empathic. I didn't know at the time what that meant. I didn't understand that I was attuned to other people's emotions. So I often would see, sense, and feel experiences that I had no conscious awareness of. I just seemed to say things and they would have meaning, or they would sort of come about a little bit later when information would come forward and somebody would say, how did you know that? Who told you? But I never really had any source for this knowledge or knowing. It was just something that kind of came to me and through me, which was often very confusing as a child, being intuitive, but not really understanding it, not necessarily having people who could nurture that. And so that created tension. It created confusion. And as a kid, it also led me to feel really uncertain about the world, the environment I was in, the experiences I was having. So what I would do is retreat to the woods. I spent a lot of time in the woods. And one of the things that I would do to kind of decompress and to let go of all this confusion and all these difficult feelings and emotions is I would play these games in the woods. And the one game that I would come back to over and over again is turning these stones. I would kind of dig and want to uplift the stone and see what was underneath there. And I noticed this really strange sensation. On one hand, there was this magical feeling of what's under there? What am I going to discover? What am I going to find? But at the same time, there was this tension of fear. What am I going to find? What else could be under there? And these two sort of oppositional experiences of possible magic and possibly something scary seemed to really captivate me. And a lot of the things that I had interest in, movies, literature, fairy tales, stories, a lot of them had that tension. I didn't know it at the time, but I was drawn to these things. And so I learned to navigate the world by reading these stories, resonating with the protagonist, whether it's Little Red Riding Hood or Vasilisa and Vasilisa the Beautiful. And there was something about these stories that allowed me to recognize patterns in my own life. They gave solutions. They had this magical and enchanting sort of quality where the natural world was alive. And that really resonated deeply for me because I felt that way in the woods. It was like everything was alive, nature, the earth, the elements. And so I spent many years in that place of asking questions like, who am I? Why do I feel these things? Why do I sense them? Why do other people around me not seem to have that same type of connection? This led me into a really dark period of my life where some of us might say we veered off the path. We just got involved with the wrong people, the wrong things. But ultimately, what I've learned is that I was a seeker. I was trying to understand myself. I was trying to understand this sense of not fitting in and not belonging. And before I discovered that that was actually a gift and a blessing, I had to really make peace with this part of me that felt like there was something wrong with me, that there was something maybe broken. And that's really what propelled me into the work. I started to attract mentors and teachers. I started to notice I was just led to different meditations, schools of thought. And I followed that, just sort of like the breadcrumbs that we have on the path. If we pay attention to these synchronistic moments. And I did that. I was like, there's got to be something to this, even though it didn't feel very comforting or soothing to have that level of intuition and depth. I felt like there's got to be a reason or a purpose. And ultimately, it really did lead me into the work that I do today. Because even though I'm not necessarily in the woods flipping stones and those kind of things anymore, I do see my work as really working with other people's psyches in that way, that same type of curiosity. Like, I wonder what's underneath this. I wonder what's behind this thought, under this obstacle. I wonder how we can see this differently.
Mm,
And so that curiosity also is something that became a gift instead of what felt like this burden early on.
mm,
And all of those things led me to discover depth psychology, which was sort of, I guess you could call it almost a bit miraculous. I didn't even know it existed, but it is this amazing form of psychology that values the hidden parts of the mind, the unconscious. And once I found that, it felt like everything in my life made sense. Everything that was a challenge, an obstacle, all of the things that didn't feel like they quite fit began to click in place. And I realized these were gifts. And it's almost like I was experiencing these initiations, some type of training experiences through my life that led me to be able to help and support others. The shadow is such a powerful part of us. We kind of go back a little bit. The term the shadow self was coined by Carl Jung. And essentially, it's this idea that there's this psychic field, this part of our consciousness that is beneath our awareness. So it's something that exists. It's sort of like a container, is the way I like to explain it. It's actually not necessarily negative or bad, even though there's a lot of times it's attributed to negative qualities. But the shadow itself is just unknown. It's beneath our conscious awareness. It's a field that holds things for us. And it holds them in this neutral manner. So it's not trying to cause problems in our lives. It's not trying to sabotage us. That's actually what we do. But the shadow in itself is very neutral. It's a container that's holding all of these different elements until we are ready to integrate them into the personality. And the value of that is that the shadow, on one side, it will contain for us all of the parts of us that have been denied, the parts of us that have been repressed, things that we have deemed unacceptable in our attitudes, our behaviors, beliefs, ideas. And essentially, we push that down. And just because we push it down doesn't mean it goes away. And so what happens is it actually gets pushed into the unconscious, into this container called the shadow. Now, the beauty of this, though, is it doesn't just hold all of those like discordant parts. It also holds our unrealized aspects of self. Gifts, skills, and talents that we haven't yet discovered are also there. Parts of us that we just haven't brought into conscious awareness also exist within shadow. So the beauty of that is we really get to explore this hidden side of who we are, and we get to bring these things forward. And there's this liberation of energy. So whether we are healing something by acknowledging it, leaning into some type of uncomfortable circumstance, situation, changing a behavior, addressing a compulsion or a feeling, all of these different things are about the movement of energy within the psyche and from shadow into conscious awareness. Then what happens is as that energy rises up, we might call it material or shadow material, as it meets our conscious awareness, it becomes realized. This is when we experience this liberation of that energy. So now it's no longer sort of held, suppressed, pushed down. Now it becomes pure potential. And we can channel this and direct this into new ways to create our life experience, to enhance things, to integrate these different skills, gifts, talents, things that we want to bring into our conscious awareness. And we can do that by working through the shadow.
Hello, this is Douglas Eby, author of the Creative Mind series of sites. This episode is an excerpt from a longer podcaster video. See the notes for details and links to resources.